Hi, I'm Angela, and today we're going to learn all about still lifes. So, a still life is defined as a work of art depicting mostly inanimate objects. It's little different than a landscape or a portrait because the artist has more flexibility over the composition. This genre of painting has been around for thousands of years, beginning with the Egyptians and the Romans, and was popularized in the 15th and 16th centuries by Northern Europeans. It's a genre of art that has continued to develop and that is really the cornerstone for a lot of artists as they start to develop. The reason that this is that making a still life focuses on one thing for an extended period of time. It really helps you to critically think about how to depict an object on a field or on a plane. So today we're going to be making our very own still lifes, and to get started you'll need a few things. First, find a quiet place that you can sit down and won't be interrupted. Secondly, make sure you're wearing comfortable clothes and that you wouldn't mind getting them messy because charcoal can get everywhere. And three, make sure you have some kind of like interesting music to play in the background to keep you moving along. Lastly, for your collection of items, make sure that they're challenging to you, that you will find them interesting for a while, and that have some kind of a cohesive property to them. So they're not just a collection of random stuff that you found around your house. So that being said, let's get started.
Okay, so this is a collection of items that I think is pretty interesting. There's enough space between them. That's what it's going to look like when I'm drawing it. So there's enough space between them to kind of make it visually interesting, and there's a lot of folds, there's different textures and stuff, so it's enough to keep the picture interesting. So we'll go ahead and get started.
First things first, get an idea of where everything will fit on the page. I like to start with the objects that are furthest apart in the composition and work my way in. It's very important to give yourself enough room to make changes, and even more importantly, be open to changing things. Nothing is cemented down. That's why you have your eraser. Once you've established a general idea of where your objects lie, you can start with the fun stuff, which is shading. Start with your midtones and work your way out. Remember, it's much harder to pull light out of charcoal than it is to make it darker. Hello, my camera died, so it didn't record the rest of my drawing, but I did finish it and I have it here. Oh, it's heavy. Okay. So it's kind of hard to see. I'll include a picture of it. Oh, God. I'll put a picture of it in a link. But yeah, so that took me probably around like 40 minutes to an hour, and it's not probably not complete, but it's as complete as it should be. And what I mean by that is that it doesn't need to be totally worked out for it to be considered completed. I'm at a point where I feel I've done enough to get my point across, and I feel good about it. So that's a good place to stop, and that's something to keep in mind as you work through anything. Don't push yourself past that limit. Keep it fun and interesting for yourself. So I hope you guys have learned something. I'm going to include some little mini lessons about what light and dark is and how they're perceived by the eye, as well as what visual weight is, how it's broken down psychologically. So stay tuned, and I'll be back with updates tomorrow. Now we're going to do a quick lesson about lights and darks. We're going to try and understand how the phenomenon of sight occurs in the human eye. Behind me I've drawn a diagram of basic anatomy of the human eye. We're going to go over some of the vocabulary. Here we have the cornea, which is a transparent covering of the pupil and the iris. Behind it is the lens. In the back of the eye is the retina, which contains the photoreceptors called cones and rods. Connecting the eye to the brain is the optic nerve, and then within the brain, the occipital lobe is the part that's responsible for sight. So we're going to go through a little test run. Light waves first enter the eye through the cornea. The cornea refracts this light onto the lens. The lens refracts this light a second time to produce an upside-down image on the retina. Photoreceptors react to this light by producing electric impulses through the optic nerve. The electric impulses reach the brain through the occipital lobe, where the image is then converted right side up. So that is a really brief explanation of how the human eye works. So why is it good to know this stuff? Well, the phenomenon of sight is the only thing that sets artists apart from cameras. You're the only one who can interpret the world around you in your own unique way, and you're the only one who can say it. So understanding the science behind it can only help you become a more informed artist. So what is visual weight and why do we keep talking about it? Well, visual weight is a psychological phenomenon called synesthesia, where you have one sensory system triggering another. In the case of visual weight, your sensory system is triggering a kinesthetic system, which is your body. And you do this without even knowing it. When you look at a picture and you feel like one side is heavier than the other, you have some kind of a strange reaction to it that you can't put into words, that's visual weight. So let's look at some quick and fast rules to identify these things and start to put them into words. So we'll go over a few of the things that usually trigger this sensation. Things that are large, dark, that have strange placement or that are asymmetrical on the page. Things that you know are heavy in real life. And things that are very complex to the eye. So the reason that we experience these things is because your brain is programmed to like things that are symmetrical. You think about the human body. You have something, if you draw a line down the middle, something is usually very close to identical on the other side. Even the human face, everything in the brain recognizes these similarities. When you see people who have lazy eyes, somebody who has unusually large features that are like independently large features, you notice them a lot more. It's like you can't stop looking at it, and that's because your brain likes to see things that are symmetrical. So these are qualities that trigger attention, and they can be used however you want in your composition. A lot of successful artists specifically use visual weight to create some kind of an uncomfortable feeling with the viewer, or make them feel small, or even make them feel disgusted. These are all things that you can use in your own artwork to evoke a personal relationship between a viewer and your piece. So it's up to you. Once you understand the idea behind visual weight, you can begin to experiment with your audience and your work.